But they were going to force me to pay them money using a debt collector if I didn't know what I know. 1 second here, let's see. Cool. Okay, now you should be able to see it. Now, how to remove collections from your credit in 10 days or less. Now, this one is going to be very interesting, right? So obviously I'm Ulrich, you guys know me in the group and founder of the Airbnb Wealth Academy. Now, the reason I'm holding this masterclass is because many of us have issues with credit. And in this academy, really, if you're in here, you're looking to learn how to fix your credit, you're looking to learn how to do Airbnb, right? And really what got me interested in doing this in the first place, what got me down the rabbit hole, was that I was having issues with my own business, growing it, right? See, I still had a 9 to 5 at the time, and I was at work, and I got a call from like a real estate agent that wanted me to rent their property because I reached out like a month prior. And that reminded me of the issues that I was having with the business. I don't have the funding a lot, but I'm trying to quit my job. Because at the time, I got so busy with my business and the work that my 9 to 5 was suffering. So every time I was going there, I was always late. There's always an excuse. There's always something. And I'm not the type to like constantly have to make excuses. I don't like making excuses because I like to make decisions, don't give excuses. So it started to weigh down on me a lot. Being at work and being in between the business and all of that was kind of getting. And the problem too is the way I was dealing with the funding situation is I was selling equity. So basically what that means is if I find a property that I'm interested in and I want to invest in it, I would, instead of just investing in it with my own money, I would sell 50%. So another investor will come in and get 50% of the profit. So I kept doing that, and evidently it kept me at work longer than I wanted to be. And I just had to find a solution. I just got kind of sick and tired of it. So what I ended up doing is, well, actually not so much what I ended up doing, but I stumbled on a solution that I just wasn't expecting. I was watching a YouTube video and they were talking about funding as a business, not just as something that you just go get. I had some business funding, but I didn't know the depth at which I had to go to actually be able to do all of the things that you need to do, right? And at the time it was daunting because I didn't know what to do whatsoever. But over time I learned how to do it, and that got me to wonder and to look at where I was at the moment. Actually, I know a lot of people that are having the same issues, with funding, with credit, and all these things. And I thought, what? Might as well go down and learn this stuff for myself, learn how to apply it, and teach it to others so they can get to their goals faster. Because a lot of us are trying to quit our jobs, we're trying to actually live an intentional life, with our children, with our family, with leisure, anything. If you're traveling or whatever the case may be, we're all trying to do this. So why not learn how to do this faster? Because it takes some trial and error. Even if you learn a little bit about credit repair and all of that stuff, it's still not going to give you everything you need. But with this topic that we're having right now, if you know exactly what to do, you get there faster. And that's what I'm trying to achieve here with this masterclass, right? So, and I'm hoping the sound is good because I haven't done enough tests to see, but I'm guessing it is, right? So, why am I telling you all this? Because I didn't have a business background when I started, right? I didn't know anything about credit. I didn't know anything about that. But I was still able to build a business that made over $1 million in 2 years, right? And I had never been in real estate, right? So some people will think that, hey, I have to be a real estate agent to start an Airbnb. I have to be a certified whatever to start doing credit repair. Or to repair your own credit. You do not have to do that. I'm telling you all this because if I can do this, even without any certifications, you definitely can too, right? So, coming back to the topic at hand, everything in credit repair comes down to definitions. And I'm not even going to just limit it to credit repair. I'm going to put it this way. Everything that has to do with just your credit, just your rights and things like that, they all come down to definitions. And a lot of credit repair has a lot of intersection with law. But I'm not going to bore you with law in this presentation, right? I'm actually going to just give you actionable advice, right? So, but the other thing I want you to take from this is that every mistake and misstep leaves debt collectors vulnerable to you. And that's what I want to show you in this presentation. And to help you understand that the collection is actually very easy to get rid of. Very easy. That's like the easiest out of all the cases. It's harder to get rid of late payment. Excuse me. It's harder to get rid of a charge-off, depending on the situation. But I think collections, you should not be suffering from that, right? Debt collectors have no power over you. So, what you should expect. I'm going to define what a collection is. Just like I said, everything comes out to definition. It matters. Right. Who can actually be a debt collector? I'm going to expand on what the FCRA, which is the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and the FDCPA is. And this is the key. This right there, that's the key that will help people understand why their letters or why they're having trouble getting rid of a collection, right? That's going to be a huge part of this. So make sure you pay attention to that and take notes. The FDCPA is the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act. Right. I'm going to double check that, but just to make sure. Now, debt collector notice what to do. So if you get a debt collection notice, what are you supposed to do? Right. Right. And what is the letter? I'm going to give you an example of a letter that I received from a debt collector, and I'm going to break it down with between 5 and 6. 7, why you should not pay any debt collector. I'm going to explain that. And there's 2 parts to that, right? And why they can't prove that you owe them anything. I'm going to explain that in this, right? Now, if the collection is on your credit, you have a certain way of doing it, certain strategy. And actually, what's not on this one, which is 11, is I'm going to show you a step-by-step on actually what to do with the repair. Like, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3, and why. I'm going to go through that also, right? And I'm going to give you prompts for you to create a letter. All right, so this is like a workshop / masterclass. It's all at once. I'm going to give you that, right? And at the end, we're going to have some final words. And if anybody's there, I'm going to, it's going to be an quick Q&A, right? Let me see if I can even log in. No, cancel that. To my Facebook on here. I'm going to try to do this on my iPad so I can actually see if somebody's asking me questions, because I can't see anything. So I have no clue if somebody's asking me questions or not. So I apologize for that. So let me try to actually log in on my iPad. This is going to be the first time I do it, so they're probably going to ask me some questions and stuff. But anyways, I'm going to move on. I'm going to let that do its thing. Yeah, they're going to ask me for sure to validate it. Cool. But while I'm doing all of this, I'm going to explain what is a collection. So I'm going by how the bank sees it, right? So an accounting collection is an amount of money allegedly owed to a creditor, like a bank, that they have not received repayment for in the last 90 days or more. So basically, it's a delinquent account. You're not able to pay, or you just haven't paid. You decide you just don't want to do it. I've seen so many jokes about that. But yeah, it's basically at least I want to say 60 days or more. But 90 days is for sure. Like, hey, they're going to send it to collection if they haven't received payment in 90 days, right? Now, the account is usually sold to a third party called the debt collector, right? And the debt collector will contact the debtor. So I should say the alleged debtor. You're the alleged debtor. Like, I'll show you what the done letter, what they sent me. About saying, oh, well, is it you that owes the debt, blah, blah, all that. You're going to get that, right? Now, if they don't hear back or you don't dispute that letter, they report the accounting and consumer report. And this is why you have a collection that shows, right? But in this presentation, I'm going to show you before it reports and after it reports, right? Because both are important. Because a lot of people are kind of afraid when they receive a letter like that. They feel like, well, I can't really do anything. I really owe this. No. Here, you're going to learn that it does not matter if you owe it or not. This is what I'm going to make clear in this presentation. Now, there are 2 laws at play when it comes to credit and debt collections, right? And debt collectors. The FCRA, which is the Fair Credit Reporting Act. I'm going to explain this in the next slide. And the FDCPA, the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act, right? And I'm going to skip the explanation for now, but I'm going to go and define the debt collector. It's like who can actually be a debt collector, right? This is what this is about. 15 U.S.C. 692A C6. The main purpose, so you can be a debt collector, you as a person. You could just go and open a business, or you could just start debt collection and become a debt collector. And this is how it's defined. If the main purpose of your activity or their business is to collect or attempt to collect a debt, that's a debt collector. Now, here's something that people don't really know. The law also expands on that. It also says it includes a creditor. A creditor would be like a bank. If a bank gives you money, or if someone gives you money, they become a creditor, like a lender, right? They can become a debt collector if they attempt to collect under a third-party name. So Bank of America has a debt collection agency within their department, within their bank. If they attempt to collect from you, they're not going to be Bank of America. They're going to be some other name, and they can be considered debt collectors as long as the primary attempt is to try to collect. And it's not Bank of America directly, because if you've opened an account with Bank of America and it's in default for some reason, right, they can try to attempt to collect from you directly from Bank of America. But if they're not able to collect, they can go through a third party, which is their own internal thing. But anyways, I don't want to get too complicated with that, but that's something to understand. You have to understand that a debt collector is very different from a creditor. And even if a creditor becomes a debt collector, the moment the creditor becomes a debt collector, that's the exact moment at which they are under the FDCPA, so they have to follow all of the rules that any other debt collector that's outside of that follows. That's very important, right? Very, very important. Now, what is the distinction between the FCRA and the FDCPA, and why does that even matter, right? The FCRA governs creditors, like the banks, data furnishers, and data furnishers do not necessarily have to be creditors. Data furnishers are any entity or person that gives information to credit bureaus, what most people understand as credit bureaus. They're really consumer reporting agencies, right? Under the law, they're called consumer reporting agencies. Credit bureaus don't really exist. The only bureau that is called a bureau under the credit laws is the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, right? They're the only one, and in fact, the law specifically says that. But most people don't know that, so now you know, right? So most of the time, I'm going to say credit bureaus because it's easier. You know, credit bureaus would be like Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, right? Those three are considered credit bureaus or consumer reporting agencies, right? So the FCRA governs them. It gives specific details. Hey, you can't do this and you cannot do this. And the FCRA was created to keep them in check, right? Because what they found is there was a lot of violations when it comes to debt collection, when it comes to credit practices. So they wanted to protect us as the consumer. You are protected under the FCRA. Same thing with the FDCPA, but the FDCPA is specifically for debt collectors, like we just went over, right? A debt collector is any entity, any persons whose primary activity is to collect a debt. That's what they do, right? So they have certain rules too, because debt collectors will try to call you, harass you, and things like that. So they have certain rules against that. The reason why those rules are written in the law is because you can keep them accountable in that way. And there is a law, and there's something, they are liable to you if they violate the law. Same thing with the FCRA, by the way. But they have different wordings, obviously. So that's the FCRA. So just as a, so I don't want to go too fast. I think I'm probably going very, very fast. I don't want to go too fast. So I'm going to summarize, right? The FCRA protects you, right? But it is a set of laws that govern and that govern creditors, what creditors can do, data furnishers and credit bureaus, right? And I think I'm going fast, so I'm going to slow down a little bit, right? And a creditor is like a bank, usually a lender, right? That gave you a credit of some sort. So they're the creditors, right? And if you read the law too, only a creditor can actually assign a debt to someone. Only a creditor can be owed a debt. Only a creditor, no one else, right? So data furnishers, they're not creditors. They're not owed anything. And credit bureau is the same. So I just want to make sure that sticks. The FCRA is separate from the FDCPA. but they play the same role to kind of keep things in check, to make sure that the consumers, us, are not damaged by their activities, right? So what do you do if you get a debt collection notice, right? When a debt collector gets in touch with you, they will send you a letter or they will call you. Bottom line is you do not pay them anything. And if you pay them something, I'm going to talk about that separately, because if you pay them something, that changes who they are. And I'm going to explain what that means. What does that change when you pay them, right? If they call you, tell them to reach out to you only in writing. You do not feel comfortable talking to them on the phone. Keep everything as writing. Because the problem with calls too is, if you are in a one-party state, you cannot record it. And it's not admissible evidence in court. Because it's not. You're breaking the law, and you don't want to be on that, right? You want everything to be in writing, email, possibly, right? Or letters. I feel like the letters are more powerful because you have a physical copy, right? So cool. Now, the debt collector that will send you a dunning letter. A dunning letter is a demand for payment. Banks back in the days, this is a word. To dun is to harass for payment or demand payment. That's literally a word, a verb. So like a word back in the 17th century, they're using that, right? The letter, though, what's important to understand about that letter, even though it's a demand for payment, there are certain rules when it comes to what the letter should have and must have. Not even should, but must have. So for example, if you want to get rid of a collection, you can just learn what a dunning letter should have and what format it should be. And if neither one of these or either one of them are violated, you can call this out and say, listen, this is the letter that I received and it does not fall under the 12 CFR, I can put here, 12 CFR 1006.34. It does not fall under that, right? Because it doesn't fall under that, I do not have to comply, or they're not allowed. I think it's right here, actually. They're not allowed to collect on it, right? But we're not going to go over all of these details. That's more like an in-depth course as to learning all of that. And maybe if you want to help other people clean their credit or remove collections, you want to learn that. But I've learned it, but I'm letting you know that there is actually a basis for the letter, right? And it has to follow a certain format. And if anything goes outside of that format, it's a violation of the law and they are liable to you. So for example, an invalid letter means that they cannot lawfully collect the debt. And if they do, they're liable to you. So let's say they try to collect the debt and you pay them, right? You pay them off. Then later on you find out, hey, they sent you a wrong letter, right? For whatever reason, you can take them to court and make them pay you because they violated the law. So that's important to know. Let me see. While I was rudely interrupted by Facebook, I'm going to continue anyway, right? So on the next slide, I'm going to show you a dunning letter that was sent to me by the collector last month, actually, and what you should take in consideration. So this company called the American Creditors International LLC, they reached out to me, right? And this is what a dunning letter looks like. And you can see my name here. All right, I removed some things like accounts and stuff like that, but those are important, all right? When you get a letter like this, don't freak out. First thing I feel like you should even look at is call or write us by May 15, 2025. Now, according to 15 USC 1692G, that's the validation period kind of thing where you can actually dispute things and all of that. They have to give you a heads up. Like they have to tell you all of this information. Hey, when can you write us by? Can you dispute it? Your rights, things like that. Where the possible ways, all of that, they have to give you all the information, right? And the things that I want you to focus on, you want to look at the name, right? Who are they referring to? Is it you or is it somebody else? Right? You want to know which company is actually reaching out to you, right? Who do you owe? What's the address? what's the amount that you owe, and when you should reply. When you should reply is actually really important, because if you don't want your score to drop, you want to respond within that time period, right? And depending on your response, it will tell the debt collector how much you know about debt collection, like right away. Like if you respond in kind soon or whatever it is. Like for example, these guys give me the option to send them an email about it, right? Which I can do because it's more instantaneous. If I send them a letter asking for debt validation through the email, they're going to have the same response. So because I have a paper trail, that's what's important about disputes. Every communication, everything they've ever sent to a debt collector or consumer reporting agency or your bank, whatever, you should always have all the records. Do not throw them away. Get a folder, cheap folder, whatever you have. Put them in the folder, keep them there. So anytime you send a copy, you have a copy. So they can't claim that you didn't send it, blah, blah, all that. And you keep all of your, again, paper trail, right? If you send mail, you're probably going to have a tracking number. Keep the receipt. Everything. So you have everything airtight. And that's something that most of us don't do with anything, but you should keep everything. Don't throw them out, right? So I got that letter. In fact, I haven't responded yet, and I'm using that as a way to show you what that looks like, right? They followed it by the T, and I quote unquote owed PayPal, but I don't really owe them. So it was a misunderstanding between me and PayPal. They actually extended credit to me, and I didn't realize that it was a credit. I thought it was my money, and it turns out that it's their money, and we had a conversation, and I already paid it. But now I'm going to deal with them separately. So what I'm teaching here is what I'm going to do. So that's why I'm telling you that, right? So here we go. So with this letter, it tells you, so what that letter already tells you, that this is the beginning of the validity period, or the validation period, right? Now, the validation period is 30 days from the date of receipt. Now, they don't know when you will actually receive it, so they give you they might give you like 45 days instead of 30 days, right? Because they don't know when you're actually going to receive it. So they're going to say, maybe we have a reasonable expectation that you're going to receive this letter within 15 days. So 15 days from now, this is the date that we're going to do it, right? So they might do 45 days so you have enough time to dispute. And you have to do that by law, right? And it tells you where. So you want to get the information because the address tells you where you should send the dispute, right? The account number gives you what you need to go back to your account if you have it open, if it's still open. At PayPal, my PayPal account is still open. So I can go check to see what exactly we're talking about, right? And the name is important too, because like if you're sending out a lot of disputes or you do credit repair a lot of times, their name actually, you can search, and I have a guide on this, you can search if they're on the forbidden debt collector list, which means they've been banned from actually collecting on the debt. So if they're legally trying to collect on the debt, they're liable to you again, right? Their attempt to collect is invalid, right? You can look for their bond, because debt collectors have to have bonds in the state. So they pay a certain fee to the state to be debt collectors, and they have a bond. You can check all of that stuff. It's very important, but I'm going to simplify this to you, so I'm not going to give you all this. I'm giving you this information so you understand a bit more about debt collection. But what I want you to take away from this is these simple things: the name of the debt collector, the name of the creditor, the address, the amount owed, the date you should reply by, and the account number, and even your name. You have to make sure you have that. Your name and the address that they're allegedly saying you owe, anything like that, the amount that it says, everything like that, you have to pay attention to. So when you're replying to them, you know on the letter, you can say, this is to American Corradius International LLC. Excuse me. And you can say that. So the reason they send you this letter is because they don't have the right to post that yet until or after, or if you don't respond, they're just going to assume that the debt is correct. So just make sure that you always dispute. And we're going to go over what you're going to say anyway in this one. So why not just pay the debt, right? Why not do it? And I'm going to explain the two reasons why you should not pay the debt. And also, these two reasons are going to be the biggest reason why you're going to get that collection off your report. The first reason, the dunning letter is the first sign that you're within the debt validation period. right? And this is an alleged debt. It's not like they have a fact, they don't know, right? They bought it from someone, like for me it's PayPal, but they don't actually have any documents on you, right? They don't know if you owed it or not. You can receive, also the other reason is you can receive a dunning letter after you actually paid the debt with the creditor. In this situation, PayPal is the creditor for me. And I've already paid them. These guys don't know that. But if I don't respond to them, right, and I'm not going to respond to them in the sense saying that I owe them or I already paid it. No. I'm going to do this process that I'm teaching you right here. I'm not going to tell them, hey, I already paid them, so you shouldn't. No. Nope. I'm disputing that debt. I do not owe this debt. That's how you do not ever give them any rope with which they can hang you for any reasons, right? You don't owe this debt, period. But anyways, and I put here Allstate because even Allstate, I had a policy with them and I canceled and I went to another company, which was Progressive Insurance Car, right? They claim they serviced it, or they gave me insurance within a certain time period. And I'm like, no, you did not. I told your, what do you call it? Your representative or the representative of your company that I was working with that I'm going to another company, so I'm not going to pursue your insurance. And that's what I said in the letter. They still say that I owe them. And you know what it is? They say that I owe them because they know that they were going to use a debt collector if I was not going to pay, right? It's not because I really owe them, because I didn't owe them. They actually ended up deleting the debt, right? But because I know all of this stuff that I'm teaching you today, the debt validation period. But they were going to force me to pay them money using a debt collector if I didn't know what I know, right? And they actually ended up deleting it because I called them, I sent them the email, they deleted it, but that was after I received the debt collection letter. That was way after, right? If I didn't know this, my credit score would have suffered. So I want you guys to really pay attention to this because this is what happens out there. They don't care that you don't really owe them. They care that they have the power over you to make your credit score suffer because they can. I didn't owe them anything. I went to another company. Just delete it from your system. In fact, it was difficult to get them to delete it from their system because they're partly disorganized and partly just careless, negligent, right? So anyways, but this is the stuff that I want you guys to take away from this. This is why I'm doing all of this, because a lot of you don't, or you suffered because you didn't know this. You suffered, your credit score is not where it's supposed to be. You can't rent, you can't get funding, you can't do any of that because of oversights like this, right? So anyways, now during the validation period, disputing the debt will force them to cease all collection activity. And they even, in fact say this to you, right? It says to dispute all or part of the debt. If you do not, we will assume that our information is correct. Now, what is the other thing? Let's see. We may stop collection on any amount you dispute until we send you information that shows you owe the debt. So this, in fact, the CFPB makes them say this. If you dispute any amount, they have to prove that you owe them the debt. That you owe the debt, not even to them, that you owe the debt, right? And that's what they cannot prove, and I'm going to show you why they can't prove it, right? Now, like at the bottom it says, the problem with that is that they cannot prove that you owe the debt. That's the number one reason they cannot prove that you owe the debt. Let me show you. The second reason why you should not pay is also because the law protects you. 15 U.S.C. 1692 G.C. states, admission of liability, the failure of a consumer to dispute the validity of a debt under this section may not be construed by any court. Now understand, it's literally saying it may not be construed by any court as an admission of liability by the consumer, which means they're taking the side of innocent until proven guilty, right? The only way they can prove you're guilty is by providing all the documents proving indebtedness. Remember that term. They have to prove your indebtedness, which they cannot prove, right? Let me just make sure I have everything cool. All right. They can't prove your indebtedness. And I'm going to show you why they can't. Why can't they prove it? Right? So pay real close attention to this particular section, because this is exactly how you get them off your back. They do not have the original agreement with you and the creditor. All right. So when you first signed up for an account with any banks or any lender, whatever the case may be, there's an agreement that you have to subscribe on. You have to sign, saying, hey, I agree to those terms. They don't have that document, which means they cannot prove that you actually owe this. They don't have that. All right. Your creditor more than likely has it. Right? They keep records of that. And there's other things you have to understand about debt collection, that when they always say debt collectors buy debt for a penny on the dollar. And what that also means is that they don't get all of the documents that will basically make them the creditor. They don't have that, right? And in fact, the reason why they can't have it a lot of times, and I've heard a study on this, done by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, the banks actually charge the debt collectors a lot more money. So imagine this. In any business, especially in the capitalist society, the goal is to increase profits. Because if you can increase profit, you can grow and you can make more profits. A debt collector will buy a debt on the penny of the dollar, because let's say that they can buy your debt. Let's say you owe the bank $1,000, and let's say they can buy your debt for $10, right? What happens now, the discrepancy between $1,000 and the $10 is so large that there is what people call it, like, there's a clear reason why you would go after that, because there's like a $990 profit to be made. If you don't know about debt validation and you don't know about debt collectors, you can pay part of it or you can try to settle. Let's say you settle for $800. They came away with $790. You didn't owe them the debt, but you paid them because you thought that you owed them the debt. But here's what happens 9 out of 10 times. You pay that debt and it's not taken off your credit anyway. So there you've lost you, because they can just park it there, leave it there. It's not that problem. That's why we call them bottom feeders. They're completely deplorable. Instead of deleting the debt, considering that it causes you pain, it causes you suffering, they don't care. They just put it there and leave it there. They can just remove it. They can do it. But they're not going to do it when you pay them. That's why we in the credit repair space call them bottom feeders, because they're completely deplorable. But anyways, I'm going to put my feelings aside. But anyways, so they don't have the original agreement with the creditor. So they cannot, if you ask for it, they cannot prove that you actually have a contract with this company and you actually owe, you've actually agreed to take credit and actually pay for it, right? They can't prove it. They don't have your account statements, like the payments, what, because they give you, if you look at the Dunning letter, they say you owe $97, but they cannot prove that you owe the $97. Why? Because the creditor can show that, hey, this has been the history of payments on your account. They can't show that. So if you go to court and you ask for that, they can't provide it. They can't prove, again, your indebtedness, that you actually owe this. Because if there's a discrepancy with what you spend and what you paid back, that will show that you owe money. But if you can't show that there's a discrepancy between what I owe and what I pay back, you can't show it because you don't have any records of my payments. So you cannot prove indebtedness in that situation, right? So that's another reason why they can't do it. And they don't have any paperwork showing that you owe them, the debt collector. So in other words, there's no contract between you and the debt collector. So how can they say that you owe them money? They can't, right? If a reasonable party were to look at the situation and say, hey, you're saying that I owe you money, but where is the proof that I've ever said that I owe you money? Or where is the contract? Is there anything verbally? Is there anything written? Nothing. If you can't prove it, then I don't owe you anything. It's just your word against mine, right? So, right, and they must be able to prove that the debt was assigned to them. So when debt collectors buy debts, they have to show a chain of title or chain of assignment. So if the debt was bought multiple times, each time it's bought, there is a chain of assignment. This person bought this debt, this person bought this. So they have to have that, right? Showing that the bank actually gave them approval to actually go and collect debt, right? And they have to show that they have the proper name, your address, and your signature. They're not going to be able to do it because all they're trying to do is sputter. It's like throw stuff on the wall and see what sticks, right? Because that's how they make their money. They don't make their money because they have all the documents. They make their money because there are people who don't know that they don't owe them money. They don't have to do anything, right? The fact that they feel like they owe the money is enough of an onus. It's enough of a motive for them to do it, right, to pay for it. So, and here's what you should take away from this. This information right here is what you're going to plug into the AI, and I'm going to show you when we go down there, right? This actually is supposed to be, it's left blank on purpose. This is supposed to be the step-by-step on how you dispute. But I'm going to go to this first, right? So on this one, the collection shows on your account. So the first parts that we talked about were all before it shows on your account. But when it actually shows on your account, there's a different process for this. In fact, I'm going to go to that. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There it is, actually. I have it open already. So here I'm going to go over the step-by-step on what you're supposed to do to actually remove the collection. So that slide is supposed to say how to remove the collection step-by-step, right? The first thing you're going to check is that you have not paid any amount to the debt collector. That's incredibly important. Because if you pay them money, 15 USC 1692 G6 cannot protect you. And let's go back to that. GC cannot protect you. Because now you're saying, because here it says, it gives you the benefit of the doubt. Hey, just because you couldn't dispute the debt within the validity period of 30 days I gave you, may not be construed by any court as an admission of liability by the consumer, right? But if you pay them, now you've admitted that you are liable for this debt. But it's not just that you are liable for this debt, you are liable to the debt collector now. That's the worst situation, because essentially what you've done is you've made the debt collector the creditor, right? And the creditor, only the creditor is owed money, but if you pay the debt collector, they've become like the creditor. And now they hold the power to say that you have injured them if you stop paying them. So, but we're not going to go into that too much of that. Let's keep things simple for now. But yeah, so check that you have not paid this. So this whole thing applies only if you've not paid them any amount of money, right? Check that you have not paid them any amount of money. Then what you want to do is dispute the debt with the debt collector and dispute it with the consumer reporting agency. So, dispute the debt with the consumer reporting agencies. We're talking about wherever it's actually being reported, because it could be reported on Experian, but not on Equifax or TransUnion. So you just dispute it with Experian, or it could be reported to all three: Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, right? So you dispute with all of them. You say, hey, I do not recognize this debt. Please investigate, because the law makes them, with any dispute, they have to reinvestigate. But what happens is, the reason why you dispute the debt with the consumer reporting agencies first is because now it solidifies, because again, this debt is showing on your account, right? If it's showing on your account, on your credit, then you want to dispute it with the consumer reporting agencies, but you also simultaneously want to dispute it with the debt collector also. But the reason why you definitely do it with the consumer reporting agencies is because you want to pin them as a data furnisher. they're no longer under the FDCPA. You want to transfer them from the FDCPA to the FCRA, because under the and I'm going to go over it actually in a little bit. So I'm not going to jump the gun. I'm going to show you step by step first, right? So if you just didn't even know the reasons why you're doing it, you're just following the steps. Dispute it with the consumer reporting agencies first, right? And dispute it with the debt collector also at the same time. Check for a response within 30 days. That's for the consumer reporting agencies, right? You're going to get a response that says either verified and accurate or a deletion. If it's a deletion, I'm going to put that here, deletion, that ends your situation because you're trying to get it deleted from your report anyway. But if it's verified and accurate, here's the thing. To verify something, and the consumer reporting agencies are notorious for this. They have automated messages, right? Because they have automated messages, they tend to say verified and accurate because they're trying to make you stumble. You basically don't want to respond, they don't want to investigate. So they say that just as a method of getting rid of you. The problem with their method is it backfires a lot, especially when you learn this information. So if they say verified or accurate, to verify something is to demonstrate the truth of it. With what we just went over, and I'm going to ask you a question that's going to help you recall what we just discussed. If the debt collectors do not have your information, how can the consumer reporting agencies verify that this debt is actually accurate? They cannot. Because to verify is to demonstrate the truth. And what truth are they trying to demonstrate? Not that the account belongs to you, because your name, because what the debt collectors are 9 out of 10 times going to do is going to give them a name and an account number. Maybe the last 4 of your social. That's it. All right. But when you're when you're disputing the debt, what you're looking for is for them to show that you actually owe the debt, not this. All right. So your dispute is when they say they verify the account, they have to show that. So here, if they say verified or accurate, you're gonna have to request the verification process. Again, that's called an I-6B3 letter. 15 U.S.C. 1681 I-6B3. That's the letter. You can request the method by which they use to investigate the information. And when you can show that they did not do a proper investigation. So you're basically covering two bases, because the data furnisher or the debt collector can delete the debt, right, from your consumer report, but so can the consumer reporting agencies from reporting it. So you want to cover both at one time. So a request for procedure is for you to show, okay, did they do a proper investigation? Because they have to do a proper investigation. Just getting a name and account number and all that is not enough. So if they don't delete it, and they only have 15 days, by the way, to respond to that when you ask them that. If they don't delete it and they say, well, this was the information that was given, this is enough for you, right? Deletion or verification process. If they did the verification process and they gave you documents that do not match a debt validation, a validation of debt, even including contacts, then you would consider that an incomplete investigation, because they do not have the documents that would prove that you actually owe this account. But because they're lazy, they don't want to do more investigation, they're going to do that, right? You can send them a demand letter, because it doesn't matter. They can't verify it. Even if it's incomplete or complete documentation is not possible. I should probably just say incomplete documentation. They're not the creditors, and they're not going to do it. Incomplete. You can send them a demand letter, because the debt cannot be verified. With what you know now, the debt cannot be verified. So that's only if they didn't delete it, right? That's when you continue that, because if they delete it here, this is the end of it. But if they have verified the quote unquote, they gave you information saying, oh, well, we contacted this person, blah, blah, all that. That's still not a proper investigation, right? Because the debt collector is not going to be able to give. They're not going to be able to give you all the documents that you're going to be requesting in your dispute, right? So incomplete documentation, demand letter, because now you have them caught. You've given them enough, the opportunity to cure the problem, but they didn't cure it, claiming the information is verified and accurate when you know that it cannot be verified or accurate, right? Now, what you're aiming for when you send a demand letter is a settlement. So here, it should be settlement or not. So if it's a settlement, then the end is there because you made money. This is literally you made money there. But if it's not settled, you're going through litigation, either arbitration or a lawsuit, because you want this stuff deleted and also be paid for the time and all of that stuff anyways. But 9 out of 10 times you're not going to go that far with the debt collection, but that's fine. But then the other method that you're going to follow, you're going to ask for debt validation, and you're going to check for the response within 30 days. What was their response? Was it removed or deleted? Or are they saying verified or accurate? What is their response, right? If it's removed, it's done. We're done, right? 9 out of 10 times, they're going to delete it because they're not going to be able to give you all the information that you're requesting. And I'm going to give you the prompt as to what you're going to send them. So, and the next thing is, if it's a verified or accurate, this is the same process you're going to follow here. You're going to ask them how they verified it. The same way you're going to do it here. So, method of verification. But 9 out of 10 times you're not going to get a response, you're just going to get a deletion if you send them a debt validation letter, if it's already posted on your credit. So you're going to ask them for the method of verification, and you're going to ask them for all the documents. Really, to be honest, if you ask for debt validation and say this right here, this is already a violation anyway. Verified and accurate, it's a violation. Because you, in your letter, you're going to make it clear that if they cannot provide, they cannot be verified. And that's under 15 U.S.C. 1681 S2, they have to delete the information. They cannot just, say verified or accurate. No, they can't do that. So anyways, if you want this particular guide, I'm going to give it to you. Just send me a message. I'll be able to give it to you. But yeah, that's an important step-by-step right there. So essentially, the collection under the FDCPA is outside of the 30-day if the collection shows on your account, right? So under the FDCPA, if you ask for debt validation based on the FDCPA, they're gonna ignore you. They're gonna say, well, no, it's already past the 30 days. Well, what do we need to give you that? But you have to ask them under the FCRA, which is to everybody, is under this law, 15 U.S.C. 1681 S2. That might be the reason, if you've disputed in the past, that might be the reason why your letters are not working, right? Now, this is the part where you actually do some action to get your letters and your collections removed. You're going to feed your AI with a list of required documents that I shared before. That would be, let's see, where is this at? What they don't have, right? They don't have this right here. So these documents right here, you're going to tell ChatGPT that you're trying to dispute a debt, an account in collection, and these are the documents that I want you to ask. Then that's what you're gonna say first, and then you're gonna say write a formal debt validation letter to a collection agency mentioned in 15 U.S.C. 1692G. That's only if the collection is not on your account yet. It's not on your credit. That's what I mean. If it's not on your credit, this is the first letter the first prompt you're gonna use to get the letter, right? Request full documentation to prove that the debt is valid and legally collectible, right? That's the first type of situation. The second, the collection shows on your credit. Then at that point, you can say write a formal debt validation letter to a collection agency after the 30-day period, but don't mention any prior disputes or the FDCPA. Just request full documentation to prove the debt is valid and legally collectible. then treat them as a furnisher of data under the FCRA. If you put that in what ChatGPT is going to give you, ChatGPT or Gronk or DeepSeek, whatever, they're going to give you a letter that you can just fill and make sure that in every letter that you send, you have a copy of a consumer report in there about the specific account if you want. Just take a specific account, just take a screenshot or something and print it out. You have that in there. You have a copy of a social security number. You have an ID as part of it to identify you. Make sure it's super clear and crisp. I'm talking about it needs to be like as if I had the card in front of me. Nothing, not like weirdly on the table or something. Clear as day. Right? And make sure you make 2 copies, one for yourself to keep it and one that you send out. Cool? With all of this, you should have everything you need to get a collection off. Right? I had some technical difficulties earlier, but that's fine. So I hope this was enlightening to you. Here's the thing. If you feel like you need help with this, I do have a 5-day challenge. Now that 5-day challenge is normally a paid challenge, but I pick here and there every month. There's a few slots that are completely free. One-on-one for 5 days, we can work on your credit, right? We'll get your credit above the 700, and we can talk about how you get funded and everything, right? Now, there would have been a Q&A to this, but because for whatever reason I had the technical difficulties, I can't do it, but it's fine. But this should help you. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. On Facebook, you can send me a DM there. That will be probably the best place. Anyways, kudos to you guys.